my name is Yote, and this is my submission video for Midwinter Speedsprinter 2019. This is Lightfall, an indie platformer developed by Bishop Games that does a lot of sort of innovative stuff that we will dive into shortly. I'd say a safe estimate is 28 minutes RTA. That's normally what it takes for me to complete a full run. Plus maybe 3 minutes of error because there's a lot that can go wrong, especially in some levels. And I'd also like to spend some time like this introducing sort of commentary in the game. Yeah, so the devs were nice enough to include sort of new game plus speedrun mode that takes the game, removes all the cutscenes, dialogue, a lot of the RNG as well. I think there's only one level that has sort of impactful RNG, and it gives us all of our abilities unlocked from the start. So we're gonna start the timer. Also, I don't think I mentioned that there is an in-game timer that makes leaderboards a lot more consistent, which is really a thing that I think a lot of games should start doing if they haven't already. So the first thing you'll notice is that I have full control of this block, and this is block I can use 4 times, and I have to reset on the ground if I'm going to get 4 more. Another thing you might notice is it kind of freezes in mid-air a bit before it eventually stops. This is because so long as you don't touch the block and you still have momentum, the block will keep moving with you. We use this in several spots to do some difficult skips. Yeah, this is one of our 4 abilities, one of which we don't really use at all. However, we should see them all within the next level. But these first 2 levels are pretty straightforward. This has a pretty decent skip coming up that is really cool. Especially, I haven't seen it before, but for now we have to work our way up. And this level sort of introduces a lot of upward movement. Here you can see I can put a block on my side as well. I can jump off it immediately and climb upward fairly fast. There we just skipped an elevator, which is a like 10-second cutscene, and now we're going to use this wall climb block that you cannot get in the story mode to skip the majority of this level. This saves about 30 seconds compared to going through some long and winding corridors underneath. And now we're basically at the end. This level is supposed to introduce a lot as far as crumble platforms and lasers, but we did not see a single laser nor crumble platform. So there at the end you saw an instance of the interact block. There's like maybe 3 times in the entire run where we end up using it. Yeah, that's pretty much all the basic mechanics. Lastly, there's a punch. You'll see it used a lot more in Act 2. But for now, this is the first boss level. There are 4 acts in this game, each of which has a final boss level at the end. This one, you'll see. I'll explain later. But for the most part, there's a boat, but we're not using the boat because it's slower, and we're just gonna run for it because it's faster. And we're speedrunning, in case you haven't noticed. Yeah, this level is very cycle-based. I just stopped there. I'm behind. Because I messed up some movement at the beginning. But the way cycles work is that they stop, or I'm sorry, they don't stop. They start globally from whenever you start the level, and they will continue throughout the rest of the level. Yeah, they'll just continue throughout the rest of the level, and including when you die. But dying also pauses the in-game timer. So you'll see that mostly in Act 4 we will intentionally die at the beginning of a level and lose no time, but the cycles will be manipulated to go faster. So this is the boss. There's a seahorse you can see on the left side of the screen. We need to free him, but he's trying to free himself from this temple, and he's using a wave to destroy everything, so we kind of have to stop that. By destroying his chains at the end. So now that Act 1 is over, this is Act 2. It sort of has a dry, deserted, kind of dreary theme to it. And it has a lot of slime-based mechanics and lots of new features like that branch there. Also, yeah, that's a pretty decent skip. Saves 1 second to the alternative method. That's a dev-intended shortcut. We actually found a way of going around that. But yeah, you can see here there's a lot of moving platforms and a lot of more cycles. There's these slime balls, which sort of do what you'd expect. Very self-explanatory. They jump. There's these seeds that will just kind of that hatch and fall on you. Here we are going to take a shortcut to the 100% round. We don't actually get the collectible because we'd have to stop, and that takes time. But explain that more in my 100% submission video. And now we are coming up to the infamous laser skip that I sort of alluded to when I talked about these blocks and momentum. Yeah, so we can skip all these elevators, but I'm gonna take the one for safety. Or at least have it there as a backup. You don't need it for the first two, but it's nice to have. But we're gonna go for the full thing. Yeah, we got it. Yeah, so that abuses the momentum I talked about earlier to sort of swing your blocks around as well as the character, whose name is Nox, to sort of climb up the lasers while protecting yourself. It's very difficult, and it took me about like 4 hours straight just to be able to get consistently, or at least relatively consistently. Yeah, so this level you've already noticed, there are beehives. They're awful. They need. The way they work is quite confusing, and it's basically a cycle, but which cycle is you get is random, so you have to do a lot of just arbitrary on-the-fly routing in order to I almost just hope you avoid the bees sometimes. There's several parts of this level where it's dying isn't necessarily entirely your fault to some degree. Here we're gonna enter this little oasis, and we're gonna have our first introduction with slime walls, which we cannot climb up slime surfaces, and slime surfaces will also slow us down, so we're gonna try to avoid those as much as possible. Fortunately, it was a little low on that skip there. That skips the entire bottom section here. Just kind of a lot, and yeah, we got a good V pattern there, which is sometimes a little too much to ask. So we're gonna abuse sort of lots of fast climbing with this wall climb block. People refer to it as a B block, because that's the button you press on an Xbox controller, but I play on keyboard in case you haven't heard the clicking sounds already. Keyboard I think is objectively better for sub-skips. Not all, like a laser skip especially. You just have a lot more control over your blocks. But this is the boss level of Act 2. This is the Temple of Midwinter. We're going to get introduced to our first auto-scroller type boss. And yeah, I fell down there, and since I already triggered the checkpoint, we're just going to go up there because it's faster. Although this cycle might be a little bit rude, so we're just going to play it safe. This level has a lot of cycles. I'm gonna try and focus because I'm not sure where, since I did die. We should be fine for the meantime. There is an intentional death warp because that checkpoint triggers early. And like I had said earlier about the in-game time pausing when you die. That's another instance of using the interact block. It's not required by any means, but it is kind of just a... I think of it as kind of a homage to how slow the elevators are, which is why in the beginning of this act we try to skip them as much as possible. Yep, for now we're coming up on the boss. It's fairly simple, however it does have some elements of RNG. It's not too terrible, but it still can trip you up sometimes if you're not paying attention. So our friends are trapped in this cage and we have to free them. And there's a big monster thing that's just trying to eat everything, so we're gonna try to make it eat some parasites, I suppose, by destroying these crystals. And since I've played this game before, I know where the crystals spawn. It's very simple, top or bottom to top in the speedrun mode. Normally, if you were to play this game, they're determined randomly. And we're trying to get some frame perfect skips. Unfortunately, we got some bad platform RNG with the slime obstacles, but no big deal. Yeah, these platforms really suck right now. I also lost count of timing. Unfortunately, it was a little too early. Yeah, we want to try and avoid the spikes platforms as much as possible because it just requires more precision. I don't really like to be precise. Pretty mediocre fight, but no major mistakes, so it's kind of nice still. Yeah. So you may have noticed that we're in Act 3, but there was no Act 3 like title at the beginning. That's because we actually skip a level. It's all story, so it doesn't really matter. There's no way to die nor gameplay. But yeah, this is probably my favorite act in 90%. The artwork is just beautiful, and it has a lot of cool strats when you play the game right, which so far I've already probably missed the timing for the cycle at the end, which is unfortunate, but we'll make the best of it. So here, I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning, but I think due to how physics should work, might I add, this game has its own physics engine, for better or for worse. Depends on how much the game likes you. If it doesn't like you, you're gonna clip through solid objects. Yeah, but we're gonna try to avoid all these slopes as much as possible because if you're moving in two directions, that is either up or down, and to the right or to the left, the game will slow you down. Not sure why, but we just kind of roll with it. And to do that, we're gonna try to avoid slopes as much as possible. And I clipped the spikes there. Skips that. Yeah, it's not a hard skip, but the spikes poke out a little farther than they should, which makes it feel inconsistent depending on the way you approach it. And there was a little too far to the right. So this is Viperous Forest. This level has a really cool out of bounds skip. I don't think it's technically considered out of bounds, but it's out of bounds enough. There's no like complicated way to break in there or anything. It's just all movement and the fact that there's no ceiling. So there's a cool reset on the platform. Oh my god. I was about to say it was a super cool reset on our platform we can do that allows us to skip climbing section below, but unfortunately we fell down. It was not even worthwhile at that point. Yeah, so this is pretty much blind. However, I know how high I need to be in order to climb. So yeah, that's the end of the level. That skips a lot of climbing. Very similar to in the second level. How we skip a lot that way. Yeah, but this is Sylveon. This is the boss level of Act 3, and it's not a traditional boss. It's a sort of door that we have to open, and it requires these keys, which are 5 crystals that represent characters in the game. But I'm not gonna spoil anything because if you want to find out, you can look it up and play this game for yourself. Here we're gonna take another intentional death warp to skip this elevator cutscene. At the end, it saves around 3 seconds, and it'll actually manipulates the cycle in our favor when we're going on the right side. So there you go. We gain control of our character earlier, I suppose. Yeah, then this is the first half. This is all cycle based and the more difficult part. And also, might I add that whenever you die, you lose all the crystals you've collected. So this one I'm going to return just as a little bit of marathon safety. It does mess with the cycle, but on the off chance I was to die here, I'd lose a lot of time and I don't really want to. The cycle is actually really consistent without it, so I don't. But it's just kind of a safety thing in case on the off chance something were to go wrong. I wouldn't lose as much time. Yeah, those are fire blocks. So I can touch the side of them just fine, but if I trigger the top, I'll incinerate. Okay. Yeah, I'm experimenting with some new strats there, so oh, nice. So that's very mediocre movie. Also sunglasses. Yeah, there's a flashing lights warning there I need to be aware of, I'm sorry. I think it's... Oh, we're good. So we've collected 3 of the 4 crystals. The last 2 are fairly simple. This one is just climb to the top. And don't hit the spikes on the way down. And the last one is a riddle that is normally procedurally generated, but in the speedrun mode it is all the same every time, so I can just move from platform to platform. Another thing you'll notice is that I don't stand on the block or on the platform rather, collect the crystal the whole time. You can actually prime it beforehand, and you can collect it almost instantly. This is Act 4. This is by far the hardest act in the game. You will see that come later level. These first 2 levels are really cool as far as cycle manipulations go. There's a new one that I do here that I forgot about. You will not see for the time being. These blocks are pretty simple. They just kind of explode when you make contact with them. And there are orbs which grow and shrink. Blue ones do so slower, and red ones do so larger. So here we're going to use a lot of fast falling and increasing our velocity there. Unfortunately I missed it, but yeah, we're going to use use block. Skip all those lasers. Oh, yeah, don't worry about my splits. My PB is awful. I've been chasing world record, but I just haven't gotten a finish run. And I forgot the psycho manipulation here. Yeah, that's a shame. At this point, it's not worth going back for it. And here it saves a lot of time going for it here. Because it would position you right about here. Yeah, I was... yeah, normally you could just walk or jump right through here, but... yeah, that's important that you don't forget that. Yeah, this is pretty awful as far as level goes. Normally we wouldn't have to stop at all, but because I'm forgetful. Yeah, that's that. Now we're moving on to the hardest level of Numbers Core, which is... this level speaks for itself. The difficulty curve is incredibly high. And there's a lot of new mechanics introduced. You saw in the last level these exhaust tubes that create sections of the game where you cannot use your shadow core. This is a very similar case here with these radars. However, they will only do so if they detect you. They're not established definite zones. Yeah, so this is kind of the calm before the storm right here. If you get a good cycle, you should be able to do the next chamber down here just fine. Oh yeah, this is also considered the boss level back forward. You have to destroy 3 generators to open a portal to the final boss in the Celestial Palace. That went well. This game has a lot of basic mechanics that if you played a platform before, you should understand just by looking at them. You're gonna take a death warp to skip a cutscene. Get up there. We destroy the generator and die, which pauses the in-game timer. Yeah, so this is probably the hardest part of the entire run right here coming up. I'm going to require some focus. However, there is a cool cycle skip we can do here. I do a slower strat that's safer. We're gonna reset our blocks just because I'm not feeling comfortable with that. Yeah, I guess we'll do it here. Oh no, we fell. Dang. Yeah. Yeah, keyboard has issues with wall jumps. Yeah, I missed the cycle manipulation. This is just bad all around. No, really? There we go. There's the cycle skip there. Now it's just a matter of climbing to the top and destroying the last generator, finishing the level. Pretty bad, but it's okay. So this level, final level, introduces these jump pads that will accelerate you past your maximum speed. Here's a cool sort of sequence this is the final boss. That is pretty much, I don't want to say a reskin because that's kind of, but it is an auto-scrolling very, very similar to the end of the forest in Super Meat Boy. It doesn't matter how fast necessarily we go here, as long as we make it to the end before the war machine thing does. Time is going to come up very soon. Time. Yeah, 23, that's a very decent time. I'm happy with that. Yeah, no major like run-ending mistakes. I don't like what I mean is no mistakes that last me like 2 minutes. Yeah, that's Lightfall 90%. I don't know what else is there to say. Thank you. Have a good one. Yeah, I talked about my estimate. This may or may not be a race. We'll see.